Hello and welcome to Scale to Seven Figures and our $1 Million Fireside Chat. I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor, Virtual CFO with Novel Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million Mentor. And I am excited you are joining me. Scale to Seven Figures is an interactive group of small business owners in the business to business, business to corporate, and business to government markets who are ready to scale their businesses to the next level. Our group is an opportunity to share, learn, and grow together without competition. Each week, I bring tips, tactics, and strategies through our $1 Million Masterclasses and our $1 Million Fireside Chats. If you are not familiar with us, head on over to www.scaletosevenfigures.com and check us out. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy our next powerful conversation. Well, good evening, and welcome everybody. I'm Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with Novel Transformation Solutions and your $1 Million Mentor. And I am excited to have everyone watching us here this evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm excited this evening because this happens to be our 51st session for Scale to Seven Figures and our $1 Million Fireside Chats. It's been 1 year since I started these sessions and these conversations and the Scale to Seven Figures programming. And let me tell you, we've talked about everything that you can imagine over the course of this last year. I mean, everything in business, from marketing to establishing your mission to hiring people and managing people to falling in love with your business and staying in love with your business. We've talked about everything. And thank you, Kimberly. I see you. Thank you for saying happy anniversary. I'm excited about this. Not only have we talked about things that, everything you can imagine in business, but we talked about things that are unimaginable, things that we never could have dreamed of in business, such as surviving and thriving through a pandemic. And so Scale to Seven Figures is the place for small business owners to actually think outside of the box as it relates to scaling and growing and just staying in tune with what CEOs need to be focused in on. Over the course of the last year, each and every month, I've brought you different themes. I focus on a different theme every month, and I've brought different experts to the table to support various aspects of those themes. And while tonight ends our full season of programming, we look forward to continuing to bring you new ideas, new concepts, new strategies to help you scale your way to your first or your next $1 million in annual revenue. So as you know, the theme for this month of August is getting back to basics, the COVID edition. And we've been discussing ways to get back on track, to be an agile organization and embrace new normals. And while we do that, continuing to thrive in uncertain times. Last week, I had Carolyn Walker, a remote workforce development expert, who shared insights and strategies on how to effectively engage and manage a remote workforce, which I think is extremely important right now, because I think we've stepped into some level of normalcy. The way that we used to do business is no longer going to be that way. And so I think it was necessary for us to have those conversations. So if you missed it, please head on over to scaletosevenfigures.com. That's scaletosevenfigures.com and check out that conversation. So tonight we are going to continue that conversation and actually wrap up the theme for this month. And we're going to talk about embracing change and what's at the root of that. What's at the root in the heart of businesses as they're going through the change process. So my guest this evening is leadership thought leader and strategist, Ebony Smith. And she's going to share tips, tactics, and strategies to help us as CEOs to really, really embrace discomfort, I should say, and move forward with business with ease and vigor and excitement. So I am going to bring Ebony on. So let's welcome Ebony.
Hi.
Thank
Hi,
you for joining
everyone.
us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm excited to have this conversation. We've got a number of people in the chat line already, just letting us know that they are here and ready to listen in. As I mentioned offline, we are streaming in 4 different places. So I can't see everybody's comments, but they're out there. But I do see a few who are in the chat line on the session where I'm watching right now. So they're
Awesome.
ready to rock and roll. So before we dive in, can you share with everybody who you are and tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay. So I would tell you at heart, I'm a risk manager. I started my career doing operational risk management. I have a master's degree in environmental protection and safety management. So in the oil and gas industry, I was doing oil operations around logistics, construction of oil pipelines, and then movement of oil. So all the construction for tanks and the pipelines, getting it into the refinery space, oil spill response. That was me. Operational safety risk management, right? So hazard ops. Anybody who's in that kind of manufacturing space knows all about HAZOP analysis and those kind of things. That's what I did. I studied how to manage in a crisis. That's what my master's degree was in. My program that I went to was a grouping of first responders. I was probably one of 3 non-first responders that were involved. And we spent most of my programming studying the first World Trade Center bombing. So I'm kind of dating myself, right? So like this is mid 90s. And then I went on to do hazardous response for an oil company for about 7 years. And then I went over to financial risk management. I worked on a derivatives trading desk, trading oil commodities for about 13 years. And now I would tell you, if you ask me, I'm still in the risk management space, but I'm doing transformational risk management inside of organizations. Because what I realized after all those years when I pivoted to start my own business, that leadership is what matters. Nobody ever quits a company. They always quit the leaders that they touch. And so in order to make the impact and influence, you got to get leadership right. And so that was the difference in me performing really well, me performing mediocre, or me deciding to leave, even though I was a high performer, because the leadership and I just didn't jive. And so whether you apply for a new job internally or externally, all of those things are the things that really begin to shape how companies show up. Leadership and culture are the different sides of the exact same coin.
Yeah, I agree. That just really resonates with a lot of the things that I share with small business owners. You know, as we are developing strategy, one of the things we talk about is that the leader sits right smack dab in the middle of business, and everything they do or don't has an impact on business, right? So, wow, that's awesome. So, yeah, you've been across the gamut as it relates to risk management.
Yeah. And so people are like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I'm a career risk manager, whether it's operations, financial, or really now it's in the transformation space of what the impact of the organization looks like. Yeah. And so that's how I've kind of connected the pieces, because people are often like, how did you go from derivatives trading to coaching? Because when you're working on a global team, you realize coaching is a big part of derivatives trading, right? When I came through my organization and I first got my first job on a desk, every day, more senior people than me on my team would coach the new people that joined the team. And this happened for about 3 hours every day for about 3 months.
Wow.
Until we passed our internal oral exams to show that we could trade without them watching every move that we made, and that they could build trust with us. And so the way that it happened was really with them spending time with us at the end of every day, going over the trades they made, why they did it, what the market looked like at the time. And so that's real leadership. And so especially leadership with peers, because our peers really felt like they had accountability to us as new team members, because they voted on us joining the team. Yeah. It wasn't like the manager hired us. It was actually everybody on the team said, yes, we could work with that person. And that's how we always acquire new team members.
That's interesting. You know, to be in an environment where your team members vote on you.
Yeah. But you know what? The level of trust, curating conflict, and commitment combined with the accountability, like the 5 classics of a cohesive team, really that's the only way you're going to get results. And so we really all had to operate as a unit. And so I would say that a lot of people underestimate the ability of a team to fight. And so curating that conflict is a really super important part of leadership and transformation, right? And we fought often, but we never took it with us. And if it was heated,
talk about that some more. I'd like to know. That's intriguing to me. You know, oftentimes as leaders of organizations, we don't want conflict, right? And so we tend to avoid conflict, and then we either step in too late or never really step in at all. So yeah, that's intriguing.
I would say curating conflict is a special group. The team has to have a lot of trust, but we all had different views of the marketplace. And so they didn't want us all to have the same views. So you had to, in the morning meeting, speak up for your positioning that you were taking. I am interested in this because of this, and I have customers behind me, and this is why I'm going after this long-term deal. And this is what I think the value is going to bring back to our book and then also to the company. And this is why these deals are important. And I remember there was a deal I really wanted to do, an RFP I wanted to respond to. And literally it took me 10 no's over 4 weeks until the other team members were like, I was working with not just my team, but other teams. My team finally said yes. They're like, I don't think we're going to win it. I don't think we're going to win it. We don't have the past performance for this. We've never done a deal this long before. And the other team I need to work with, I work with them pretty regularly, and it was another trading bench. And he goes, I only said yes so you could stop asking me. I was like, did I ask you a lot? And in my mind, I didn't know I was asking him every day.
Yeah.
He goes, literally, the market would close and I could see you putting in your trades. And then I knew in 10 minutes, you go show up at my desk. So, hey, can we take a walk? I want to talk about that deal. And he goes, I was like, wow, I wasn't even aware of it. But I just knew it was a good idea. And so I needed to voice my professional opinion on a good idea. And we kept going. He goes, finally, I said yes so that I didn't have to do any more coffee walks with you.
Oh, my goodness. So how did it turn out in the end?
We won.
Yeah.
Handedly. We won. We got it away from a 50-year incumbent.
Wow.
He goes, they're never going to pick us. They've had the same incumbent supplier for 50 years. Right? But he didn't know the power of, I got to give good phone. And I was talking to that, the buyer. I was like, hi, how's it going? Let me send you some information. Do you know about this? How this works on the refinery? No. I was like, oh, you should know. These numbers and this pricing affect the price you pay spot market. Because at the time I was doing oil. And so I was just educating him. Their incumbent never educated him.
Yeah.
And, there was some cheesy commercial at the time that an educated customer is our best client. And it might have been like warehouse or something. But I was like, you know what? If I educate him, he's going to love it that, this is my supplier. I was like, this is what you should know. This is how the deals are broken up. Let me just give you how it works in our industry. You may not know the full transparency when you're dealing with big oil about, how these things price. So if you put this part in the RFP, but don't put this part in, you'll get a much different price structure. And because in actuality, none of us want to do that. None of us are in that business. We got to go buy it and hire somebody to manage it. So if you do it yourself, you'll find different pricing. And he's like, oh, really? I was like, yes, we don't want to do that. I just want to bring you oil to a dock and then deliver it and then not touch on this ever again. And every week, I'm an oil company. I just want to bring you oil. And it was in that education that helped us win. And he was like, oh, my goodness. He goes, well, what other deals do you have that I've been saying no to? And like literally, they would say no to me all the time. I was the junior person when I first joined my team. And I was like, well, I got this one I'm thinking about. I met this guy and we've been having good conversation. And it really, that's the way it started. And so just understanding that the no that sometimes people give you is because they don't see the bigger picture. And you have to paint it in for them sometimes. They may not be a visionary. and understanding that that's really the part of curating conflict is that you need to give them more information. I see a no as a not yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He saw a no as a no, but I see a no as a not yet. Oh, not yet. Okay, you're not ready to buy. I just need to come back tomorrow because it's a not yet. Because I'm going to sell it to you.
You touched on a lot of really good golden information in everything that you just said. You know, a lot of the companies that are listening and that I service are they do business in and around the government contracting community. And past performance is everything, and evaluating opportunities. My grandson right now is creating conflict. Can you hear him?
Look, you guys are not serving him in the way he chooses.
And he's letting us know right now.
Yes.
But past performance is key. Taking a look at opportunities and, you know, really evaluating them, making determinations on whether or not we should proceed with this opportunity. And then there's always there, I won't say always, but there will be times when there's somebody on the team that says, no, forget all of that. We need to go after it. And what I love about what you said is if it feels right, if it looks right, and you know for certain you can get it done, you should get over those fears and present your case.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see this every day. A lot of companies. You just said you walked away from a 50-year income. I mean, I'm sorry, you overcame. Mm-hmm. You took over from a 50-year incumbent. That's another reason why a lot of companies don't proceed, is that they see that there's somebody doing it and they've been there for a long time. But like you said, leadership on the other side is looking for something different.
They were looking for something different, and honestly, I had never responded to an RFP as a lead. This was to supply another government, and I had never done it as a lead. I'd supplied lots of airlines and like manufacturing, but I'd never done it as a lead for a national contract for another country's, supply. And so I was like, let's get it in there. And he was like, "Is this?" I was like, he was so friendly to me when I met him at the convention, and he was like, "We're going off the fact that he was friendly." He was friendly. Mm-hmm. All of the big players were there. He came over and talked to me. We were two introverts in the corner talking to each other. And he goes, I'm going to come visit you. And I said, you're going to come to Chicago? That's where I was based at the time. He goes, yeah, he came to Chicago in February. Nobody comes to Chicago in February from the Caribbean, unless they're serious.
Right.
And so
yeah.
He came, and the rest of my team was like, oh, he's serious. I was like, yeah, he's serious. He goes, and then the main person that I needed to say yes, he was going to help me with the supply side. He goes, I think we could win this. I said, we need to go visit him now. So we went to see him like 3 weeks later. He gave us a tour of their country, the island. We looked at the infrastructure. I climbed tanks. I was in docks. I was on barges. And so then at the end, he goes, they really like you. I go, yes, they do. And they really like us. And they think we have something new that their other supplier isn't doing. Yeah. And that's what's going to get it to us. Yeah. Because I just keep having conversations.
Yeah. And that's the missing link, right? That I tell people all the time that business is all about relationship. Mm-hmm. People do business with other people. Even when you're buying products, you're doing business with a organization that's led by someone that you may not know them, but you like them because, like you said, the culture makes you feel good. You purchase, you go back, and you keep going back time and time again because you like them. So it's all about the relationship. And so, developing that opportunity to have that conversation, that is the open door. And I don't know why so many people shy away from the conversation.
Yeah, the conversation really. So, and you know this as a coach, there's 3 different levels. So you can do the high, how are you, which is a level 2. Mm-hmm. The level 3 is, oh my God, Lisa, I hear a baby in the background. Whose baby is that, right? Mm-hmm. If that's my opening question to you, right away, I want to know about Lisa.
Right.
It's that level 3 conversation, and getting in there right away is when you're going to hook the person that you're talking to, and asking, those open-ended questions. I always tell my clients, honestly, the best way you're going to learn information, and for executive leaders, I remember one specific client, had just gotten promoted. She was in the first 90 days. She needed to negotiate a new facility, not her specialty. New industry for her, new job.
Yeah.
Right? They hired her because she had done a lot in a different industry, which was not adjacent or parallel to this job that she had gotten as CMO inside of this new company. But big deal, highly visible. And we had been practicing powerful and empowering questions a lot in our coaching sessions as part of her 90-day strategy to get to know. And I was like, how'd it go? She goes, I just asked powerful questions the whole time. And then I let my team shine. They are the subject matter experts. I would ask the big question. The negotiating party on the other side would answer. Our team would go in with the follow-up. I was like, that's our rhythm, because I don't need to be an expert in this. There are people on my team that are experts. I just need to engage in a way that I allow them to shine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's how she approached it. And she was like, I didn't think it was going to work when we went over the strategy. She goes, it was beautiful. My team was like, you really trust me? And she's like, I absolutely trust you. She was in the back of my house like, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people don't attack those conversations because they don't know what to say. But like you said, just, being able to understand the different levels, the different layers of conversation. And then at the end of the day, it's not about the thing. It's about the person in front of you. Mm-hmm. I remember I worked for this company many years ago, and there's a couple of things that the woman said that owned the company was, I was the team member that went to the meetings with her. Right. And one of the things she said is, number one, everybody in the room has a purpose and a role. So never walk into a room or into a meeting and stay quiet. Everybody around the table has a purpose, even if you don't understand who's around the table or what it is that what the conversation is going to be. You need to make certain that you interject your voice into the conversation.
Yeah.
Don't say something that's stupid, or don't say anything that's, completely left field, but go with the flow of the conversation. And then the next thing she said, when you walk in the room, look around the room and look for things that are unique, that would spark some type of conversation that would cause a question about, oh, I see, like you said, there's a picture of your family behind you. Let's, spark a conversation about that. Or maybe there's a beautiful painting on the wall. Say something about the painting. That is what actually livens up the room, and it makes the person more interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are great tips for moving forward. I think people also give you something, these signals, which in my foresight part of my practice, when I'm helping people come up with some planning, I always ask clients, I tell them, like, the world is always giving you signals, and it's up to you to catalog the signals and document them so that you can go back for your brainstorming phase. And so during COVID, I created a signal Zoom call with my friends right in the mid-March. As soon as the country began to shut down, we started having these Zoom happy hours, and we were initially calling it the winners and losers list. Who's going to win? Industries that were going to win and industries that were going to lose because of the pandemic that's now an endemic. Yeah. And so we were constantly revising lists. It was marketing people, PR people, advertising people involved. We then revised it to my signals process of, this is something, sometimes we always read something and we know it has some relevance, but it's not clear. It's a great puzzle piece. And so I now just create a headline and I said, this is the what, this is the so what I can see right now. And I document any external research that I can find really quickly. And I put it in a Google Doc. And then I put a bunch of tags against it. And so in foresight work, it's called creating this, looking for the signals. Signals are the symptoms of the disease that's coming. The disease are actually the drivers for the changes that are coming in your industry. Right. And so, one of the first signals that I cataloged that I was like, something's happening here. I texted a few of my friends and I go, and this is going to sound it's very popular culture, but I was like, DJ D Nice 3 nights ago started doing these IG live streams. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm on here Saturday night. I said, let's see. We all home on COVID. Just dial in. My girlfriend who does consumer research and UX design for tech companies, she owns she's a woman-owned small business. And I said, what are you doing? She goes, I'm home on quarantine. I live in New York City. I said, well, hop on this then, because your kids are in bed now. And so she hopped on and I go, something's happening with marketing right now. She goes, he's changing marketing right now. Yeah. She goes, we're seeing it live. And so that night, that's the night it went to 100,000. That's the night that it made it to the news wires. That's the night Mark Zuckerberg was in for a few hours because we were breaking Instagram live because it wasn't designed to be on more than 59 minutes at a time. And that one series, Birth Versus, and lots of other ones that came after he did Club Quarantine, and Instagram changed their UX platform.
Yeah.
So now you can, right? And so, but I knew that was a signal. So it's a symptom. And now what's the driver going to be? It only took them about 2 weeks to reconfigure the UX platform and do a lot of other things. But I think many of us, especially as business owners, as you're looking to scale, the world is showing you signals. You just don't know what to do with it yet, but you need to catalog it. And so what you should know that I didn't know before I started doing this work is that large companies pay think tanks to access their signals.
I didn't know that either.
Right? And so that's why they're ahead of the trends. Yeah. Because they have professional.
Not always.
Not always.
Yeah.
But for a large scale information, when they're looking to do like a 10-year strategy,
right,
they're looking to see what signals are being shown and what professional researchers have cataloged as this is a signal. We don't know where it's going to go, but this is a signal that we're seeing in X space. Yeah. Right. And so I think as business owners, we're close to the ground. We're super agile. Yep. And we're really good in VUCA environments. I also talk a lot about VUCA environments, which is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. The antidote to that is vision, understanding, clarity, and agility, which you touched on earlier. Yep. It's being agile with the signals that we see on the ground. How do you make those pivots so that you can keep your business going and continue your scale up? And so I have a few friends that are small business owners. She's like, we're way ahead of plan during COVID and we're shocked, right?
Yep. A lot of companies that I've talked to have been that way. So this is the first time I've heard it as signals, which I think is fascinating to me. I call it identifying and filling the gaps. So there's always a gap. Just look for the gaps, get quiet, pay attention, and look for the gaps. And then what we need to do as small business owners is shift to fill the gap. Sometimes, like you said, there are organizations who have, they pay people to identify these things and to help them continue to move forward. But small businesses can drop it on a dime, but you really do need to pay attention. And that's why leadership in the middle is so extremely important.
Yeah. It's the awareness of this is a need that they have and we can fill it. It may not be our core business, but it'll get us in and it'll make it a much stickier customer. When I was another one, when I was doing big corporate sales was I asked the client, like, what are your pain points? Like I wanted to sell them fuel. What are your pain points? And they were like, oh, it's invoicing at different airports around the world. And I was like, oh, what's your problem with that? Right. Because we were a fuel seller.
Right.
We had entire teams that did nothing but pull invoices like every hour of every day. That was their full-time job. And we pulled invoices 24/7. And it's called a bill of lading. We pulled the bill of lading so we could invoice our clients. Yeah. Right. And so I was like, that's your pain. He's like, we're just not good at it. We're not getting all the ones. I said, great. Give me your entire flight schedule. I'd be happy to, as a part of being your fuel supplier, to pull all of your invoices for you and bundle them and send out an electronic transfer every day. Like this is all our team in Latin America does. Like they are a 24 hours, 7-day-a-week team. We did it. They became a great client. He's like, so can you do some analysis around? I was like, yes, we can analyze your data. What would you like? What kind of reporting would you like? We uploaded it into an SAP packet for you already, so you can just push it into your system. How else can we serve you? This is how you get really great clients, by just saying like, oh, how can I serve them?
Yeah,
that's the same for me when I'm like doing leadership and training with my clients inside my small business. Like, what are your pain points? Like, what's really stopping you from moving to that next level? And I would say for some of them, it's, keeping their star players engaged.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so they're really good at their job, but they're so good that they're bored.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you keep your star performers in that job that you really need them in, but they could do it in their sleep? And so we talk about that. Right. And so, I'm like, oh, they're great for a group coaching program. Where instead of giving them a new job, we're going to focus on how do we rebrand them inside your organization as having like multiple expertise levels. And so, that's another thing. Like when I'm working with people like for talent development, they're like, how do I keep my employee with me? It's about retention and engagement. They're great, but I don't think I'm going to be able to keep them I need them in 10 years. And I don't know if I have enough to keep them here for the next 10 years.
So we want to bring you back for that conversation, because that you're absolutely right. That's a sticking point for, I think, every organization, small, mid-size, and large organizations. At the large end of the spectrum, a lot of it has to do with, those individuals have lots of institutional knowledge. And so shifting them in a different place creates a gap in that area. So they're afraid to make the move. I mean, it's just so many reasons why that is such a great conversation, and companies need to consider that. So this is good stuff, Ebony.
Well, thank you. I really do appreciate that.
We're going down a pathway that I wasn't expecting. This is
I know, I'm sorry.
No, this is good. This is good stuff. I mean, the chat is blowing up. I mean, they're loving this. So this is good. But let's talk a little bit about, everything's changing around us. We talked about, identifying the signals and the gaps and making pivots and all those things. But this whole environment has been so completely uncomfortable. And the reason why you're here this evening is because I happened to stumble across a video that you did on LinkedIn about embracing the discomfort in order to move forward. And again, that was intriguing to me. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about what are some of the areas, some of the things that you're finding leaders of organizations are uncomfortable with right now. And then what types of things are you suggesting that they think about? Just, a couple of things that will help them to continue moving forward.
Okay, so just a little bit of background. I take everything from a design thinking UX perspective. So how can we use design thinking to iterate on the process that we already have, and then UX and designing the best user experience. So I always ask, like when I'm working with clients, go up here, helicopter up. It's in the helicoptering up that you're going to get away from the micro, and you can take a macro view of everything that's going on. Yeah. From there, you're going to define all of the roles that you show up as. You're the owner of the business. You're the chief growth officer. You're the financial officer. You are the leadership motivator, chief motivator, shoulder to cry on. Yes, proposer, accountant, like everything. Sometimes you're making lunch because it's a staff meeting and nobody else ordered or made lunch. Like, really? Nobody else can make lunch? You're making lunch. You're doing everything. But if you look at all of your roles, you'll have to think about where can you make little changes every day? And which of those roles are you the most uncomfortable making those changes every day? It's in that discomfort is where your growth is. Mm-hmm. And so those are the places probably where you should make the changes the fastest, right? And so, you're a CPA. I'm going to confess here. You didn't ask for an altar call, but I'm going to give you one. I remember the first time I heard you speak, and I was like, oh, I need to get my handle on all my numbers. I went and hired a forensic bookkeeper who went back to day one of my business and put everything in because like every small business owner in the beginning, I was my own bookkeeper, which is never a good sign. I had a CPA, but I was my own bookkeeper. And they went back and cleaned up my ledger so that I could have a really good snapshot of my business. And I remember that from your talk. And I did that. And I put it off because I was uncomfortable with it. Right. And I was like, this is probably really where the growth is, right? For me as a business owner, and then forcing myself to run the reports and gain an understanding every day before I went into a couple of times a week. Like if I'm brainstorming about the business, let's look at the real numbers. What does the forecast look like? Creating a 3 or 5 year forecast. That's really where my discomfort was. And I promise to everyone here, that's where your discomfort is. Whatever it is that you really dread doing, that's where the biggest opportunity for you to grow. Thank goodness I did that, because it's in that forecast I created, cleaning up the books, that when I needed to go out for a loan during COVID, my books looked amazing. Like the bank was like, "You're a small business?" I was like, But you know, we are financial hawks here. I'm not. I became one. And they were like, we need less detail on this, on your balance statement. I was like, what?
That never happens.
And
Less
like,
detail.
What? They were like, my God, woman, we didn't want this much detail. I was like, well, I gave you the detailed version out of QuickBooks. You didn't want? No, send us the roll up. We understand now that I've seen your details. She's like, your loan pack is just too big. Like I need to shorten it. I have it for reference if they ask me when it goes before the committee, but I need you to, she goes, did you put everything in the right account? I was like, we did. And it was that's where their level of comfort came from. Thank goodness, you know, that I did that work in the fourth quarter of last year. Like literally everything that ever went on the corporate card got put in an account ledger, which I never had before. I would just pay the bill and say it was a corporate charge, right? But every individual charge went back and got reclassified. And having that level of detail made them believe my forecast.
So it gave them comfort. It gave you comfort. It gave everybody confidence in you as a business. I mean, so that you probably know now, that has opened up the doorway to certainly the most immediate opportunities, but it's opened up the doorway to other opportunities you haven't even seen yet. I mean, your banker they're thinking about you.
Well, when we closed, they're like, by the way, we would have given you a bigger loan. And they were like, you can come back. We won't, we don't need more documentation. Like we believe your forecast. We believe all of these things. We understand your growth strategy and so for me, it was a huge discomfort. Like, you know, I never took an accounting class. I was a chemistry major. And so, you know, that was the discomfort. And so I'm telling this story so that there's something in your business that makes all of us a little bit uncomfortable. And you just kind of like, I trust my professional, which is great, but you should have that level of understanding too. And honestly, I had friends who, you know, they are accountants and MBAs. And I was like, can we go over what this means? And she's like, absolutely. Let me tell you why you're doing this, where this goes. And that way I can ask better questions to the professionals that I'm hiring to work with me. And so it's in that discomfort that you'll really see where your growth came from. My growth came from me kind of really, really embracing becoming a financial hawk of the business, and me really knowing what the turn was, what I needed. I tightened terms with my clients. There's a lot of things I got rid of or I added in. And people were absolutely okay with it. And so just me kind of understanding like how that shows up. And so that's my personal story. And for each one of you, you're going to know what's uncomfortable. You don't have to think about it. I mentioned the question. I told you the story. You're like, oh, for me, that's this. I don't understand it. I didn't understand digital marketing. During COVID, I went to a boot camp. I got Facebook ads going right now, things that I wasn't doing before. I was like, I'm not doing these funnels. Got a funnel going. Right. And so I was like, this great pause is here. Yes, I need to worry about keeping my business open, but also what opportunity is there in this period that we're all going through that I can really begin to figure out what my scale up looks like. And how can I like create a different forecast? And when I was talking to some other friends in one of my mastermind groups, I was like, this is the number I like to hit in 3 years. And they're like, I was like, I know it's a stretch, but if I really stay at it and look at the numbers every day, I'm always looking at my pipeline now, right? And so whether it's GovCon, talking to a contracting officer, getting stuff, set aside,
Yep.
I'm like, who else can apply so we can do the rule of two on this one? Mm-hmm. Looking at like the updates from like WIP and other things, I'm like, oh, I've never been interested in the Defense Reauthorization Act, but now that I know we all could get, WOSBs can get the privilege that 8As have, I was like, oh, I was going to apply for 8A in 2021, but if I get this going into the next fiscal year, I'll apply for 8A in 2022.
Absolutely. And let me just tell you, a lot of people were skeptical about that change because, WOSB has been out there as a set aside opportunity for a few years, several, but organizations hadn't been using it. It's because they shifted to what was more comfortable, what they understood and what they could do the fastest. But COVID happened, and this is what I told companies in March. I said, you're going to see some things change in regulation that's going to open the doorways because the government is going to need services in the fastest way possible. And so while all these big contracts and what they call GWACs and all of these best-in-class vehicles is still a buzz, but guess what? They can't move that fast on those vehicles. So they're going to go to 8A. They're going to go to women-owned small businesses. They're going to find a way, the fastest path to offload cash. And so over the course of since July, well, actually since just before July, I started to see that those things materialize. So I have clients who have shaped women-owned small, they've shaped things so that they're not going with 8A, they're going with women-owned small business, which I think is a kudos because 8A has a 9-year timeline. Women-owned small business has a forever timeline as long as you qualify. Mm-hmm. So you can get a contract and, you could become that 50-year incumbent, right?
Yeah.
Through a women-owned small business certification. So kudos.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. I was talking to one of my friends. Her mom was in the first 8A cohort in the 1960s.
What?
Yes, and she owns her mom's company. I was like, your mom gave it to you? She goes, we're Jamaican. No, she made me buy it. I was like, oh, she goes, I got that. Those kind of parents. So like, oh yeah, this is a family business. If you want it, you should buy it. Otherwise, we're going to sell it to somebody else. And so she bought it. And I was talking to her mom and I'm like, how did it start? She goes, they started coming to my church to try to get some of us involved. And we were in one of the very first ones in that very first cohort in New York City because we were an importer. And so we had logistics pipelines. And she goes, because we did it for the garment district. We were flying clothes in from Paris. And her mom's telling this story. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And she goes, this is kind of how we built it out. And I think for me, hearing other people's story also lessens the discomfort.
Yeah.
Really, it does. Because I know that, all right, I'm not trailblazing. I am. There's a path to success here. I just need to talk to enough people to figure out what my flagstones look like on that path to success. Yeah. And I honestly, I wouldn't have even thought about it. But when I first, looked at becoming WOSB, it's because I heard a woman talk about it at a conference. And I hadn't really considered federal government contracting before 2 years ago, or doing any kind of government contracting. And, now I have a couple multi-year prime contracts. Yeah. Right. For training and development. So I think hearing other people's stories sometimes can help us ease our discomfort so that we can feel like, okay, I just need to grab a little bit more information here. It's not as far out of reach as it could be. And there are people along to help you. One of the favorite sayings is everything you need is right here. You just haven't looked for it. Right. It's right under your nose. And so that literally for so many things is how it's worked out for me. So yes, embrace your discomfort. Everything you need is probably right under your nose. You're one person away, maybe two at the most, from somebody who can help bring it closer, like just inside the Facebook group or inside of one of your networking groups that you could mention a topic and all of a sudden, oh yeah, so-and-so does that. Do you want me to do an email intro? They'd walk you through their overall process. And I think that's one of the ways to get over the discomfort, especially as a small business owner, because I, even as a coach, I'm like, should I apply? Application anxiety. Should I respond to this RFP? Is it going to be too big for me? And yeah, honestly,
Yeah.
it is one of the things we all have to embrace. It's part of our growth.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell has this great saying that says, we have to let go of the life that we have to accept the one that is waiting for us.
Mm.
And so there's a life waiting for you. You just have to accept the discomfort so that you can scale up to the next level.
I love it. This is great.
Thank you. I'm enjoying our time.
Yes, this is fantastic. Well, my friend.
I know we're at the end.
Yes, we are. But this has been really good conversation. I love it. We're going to have to come back next season at some point and have more conversations. We can dig deeper into some of the areas that we talked about this evening. But this is really, really good. I really appreciate you doing this. Before we wrap up, any last words of advice to small business owners who really, really, really need to embrace that discomfort and, get that business moving forward?
The number one leadership skill by the futurist that I follow, who has been 80% right since 1970, this is a think tank in Silicon Valley, is that we will have to embrace post-categorical thinking and go into a full spectrum model. It's the number one leadership skill that companies will need over the next 10 years. The prediction just came out during COVID. You have to figure out what full spectrum thinking and removing labels looks like for your organization and also for the people in it. This new generation of Americans, they don't really embrace labels. Generation Z really should be divided into two categories. You have your digital natives, which they're the people that are really 16 to 24 right now. And then you have your cross reality natives, which are the younger portion of Generation Z. And they're used to having an Oculus. And so when you're living in a cross VR world where you're playing all your games and talking to your friends, it's a much different America for you. Yeah. And so this is really where you have to begin to think about how can you embrace leaving labels behind, doing that full spectrum work, because you're going to get there faster than the bigger companies because we're small and we're agile. And you can help serve our potential clients by just having this new mindset and talking about what full spectrum thinking really looks like. It's a book I do recommend. And so just really think about where that is. And that would be my last bit of agility, embracing change, thinking about how you can apply those concepts to your business to really begin to move forward, because the workforce of the future looks so different than where we are right now. Within 2 weeks, America went online for non-essential workers, which we would say that would have taken years before. It's all online. And you've got some of the biggest FANG members saying we're not going back, or these jobs are permanent. Yep. Right. And so there's
one of them. I'm saying that.
Are you that you're permanent?
Yeah, we probably won't go back into a traditional work environment.
Yeah.
We've been extremely productive, available, accessible, and there are the resources, and there's other places I want to invest. So as a business owner,
yeah. And so, I would say it's inside of that releasing of labels and categories where your discomfort will lead you to a solution that somebody's looking for. And that's part of where you can begin to scale and really grow your business in a whole new way.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. I really do. This is great conversation. I wish we had all night.
Thanks, everybody.
But thank you so much. Tell everybody how they can learn a little bit more about you and your business.
So my web address for my company is Ebenum Equation, EBENUM, and then equation.com. Ebenum is ebony in Latin. I just needed a clean trademark from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, to be honest. And I was tired of thinking up names. And so
I love it. I like it.
Right?
I'm going to ask you, what does that mean? But that's awesome.
It's the wood of the tree. Ebony is a wood. And so Ebenum deciduous is a type of ebony wood tree that's found in Sri Lanka. Honestly, It was like, I'm not going to pay for another trademark search. And I asked my one friend who's general counsel for a large company, she goes, either pick like Basque. I was like, Basque? And she was like, we can always get a clean trademark in Basque. Not in Catalan Spanish, but in Basque Spanish. Clean trademarks are available. Most people don't speak it. And then she goes, pick Latin. And so I started going Latin version of ebony. I was like, oh, it's a tree. Ebony is a tree, of course, not just the color. And
Right.
that's how I came up with the name.
That's
And I'm a
awesome.
chemist, and that's what equation came from, just because I love equations to move forward.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you joining us this evening. These were really, really good nuggets that you shared, and I look forward to us talking again sometime next season.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you. Wow, that was really, really good advice, good conversation. I mean, we went in a lot of different directions, but it was all necessary. But at the end of the day, it all actually came full circle. Managing a business through change actually really does require grace, agility, and stamina, focus, and being able to identify those signals that are coming in the marketplace, and just moving on those things that make us uncomfortable. I agree with everything Ebony said about the thing that is making you the most uncomfortable is the area where you're going to grow the most in business. I had a conversation with a client today where we went through her next 12-month strategy. And over the course of this last 12 months, she doubled her income and her size just because we focused 100% on the area where she was most uncomfortable. And it works. So I encourage you all to take a look to assess, where are you uncomfortable? Where are you uncomfortable? And dive in. And just remember this, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you have to do it. It means that you bring on resources. You become resourceful as a CEO, hire in the individuals who can help you in those areas where you may not have the ability or the expertise, and let them help you become a force to be reckoned with. So I want to thank you all for joining me, not just tonight, but this season. It has been absolutely phenomenal. We have so many people who just show up every single week like clockwork, and I do appreciate you. This ends our programming for season 1 of Scale to Seven Figures. We will be taking the month of September off, so we will not have any programming in September. That is going to help me plan the programming for our next season. So we will be back in October, and we will be back with new topics. We'll be back with a new lineup. We'll be back with a new schedule as well. So be on the lookout. Stay tuned for all of that information to come. But I want to thank you guys again for watching this evening, watching this year, sharing your insights, giving us your comments. Thank you for wishing us a happy anniversary. It has been so much fun. I thank you all. And in closing, I am Lisa Anderson, Strategic Business Advisor and Virtual CFO with A Novel Transformation, your $1 Million mentor. And I look forward to seeing you all again in season 2. Thank you again, and have a great evening.